Good morning everyone, and welcome back again to the KSR YouTube channel, where we are working on my 78 Oldsmobile Cutlass again. It does say quick 78. The guys messed with me a while back and made that Q a B so it looked like Buick 1978, but this is not a Buick. It is my first car, 1978 Oldsmobile Cutlass, the car I drove to high school, or at least parts of it. You know, it's the roof quarters, door jambs, firewall for now. It's going to be the front fenders and the same hood and front fascia, new front bumper, new doors, obviously a new chassis, which is what we're going to continue on today. And we may even be to a point in this video of cutting out some of this support tubing that I put in, because we're starting to get some structure here that is more than strong enough to support and keep the chassis straight without all of that extra bracing on it. So I hope you're ready for some working, some time lapsing, might be some tech tips sprinkled in there along the way. We'll see, or at least how I've done things. In no way am I saying that my way is the way, or especially the only way to do something. But if you learn something that you maybe didn't know before, that's cool. If you think I'm an idiot, tell me about it in the comments. You know, I'm always willing to learn something new, because I kind of believe that you can learn something new every day. So, with that being said, I better get to work, because if I don't get to work, this is never going to get done. Yeah. Alright, well, first order of business today is going to be to connect from the back side of this joint right here down to right on top of right there. And yes, I'm going to make sure that it is right there, because I've mentioned before in some of my other videos, and I'll mention again here in case you haven't seen my other videos. And if you haven't seen what I'm about to say, or want to go back and do some digging with some of our older videos, feel free. Maybe subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, leave us a like and a comment. All that helps the algorithm to help expose the video to more people. And I know these Cutlass build videos are kind of the same thing just about every week, except there's more bars going in the car. Kind of the same way we're chipping away and have similar progress videos posted on Val and Steve Morris's Camaro over there. But we are going to be doing some racing. In fact, next weekend we will be at Pit Race up just outside of Pittsburgh in Wampum, Pennsylvania. I don't know why I like saying that word. It's just funny to me, Wampum. But that's where Eddie and I will be for the Trans Am race, to continue supporting Lee Saunders with the black Dodge Viper ACR. Black with red stripes. He has two of them that he road races. One's red with black stripes and the other one is black with red stripes. Hopefully we'll be seeing the red car later this year, maybe early next year, for a revamp. But some of the assorted content that you'll see on this channel, road racing, maybe some dirt biking soon. Anyways, just subscribe, check us out. So, anyways, back like I was saying, one of my ideas with roll cages, or at least one of the intentional moves that I make when building roll cages, is I want to tie load paths together. So I could take that bar, well, let's just do it on this side. I could take this bar from here straight up to here. All right, well, if I just ran it here and something bad happens back there and that load gets put into just this point of this bar, well, now it's bending this, it's trying to fold, you know, fold this bar, and it's not a straight load path in and around the driver. So we're gonna go from there right up to this, to where we're centered on this bar here, so that the load path goes in, gets transferred out, and then there's actually going to be a little bar there, but you can see how in the same fashion the bar that comes up here ties into the roof X, and I'm actually even going to probably gusset from the intersection of where this bar goes through and is gonna connect down to this bar that I'm about to make today. So just trying to connect everything. I've heard it called having nodes in the chassis, N-O-D-E-S. That's something that I've seen a lot in the off-road truck world. You will also see that in like rally race cars. NASCAR certainly ties things together in certain points to try and, you know, make the chassis. I've always looked at it from the perspective of transferring load throughout the car rather than it, you know, it's the same as you want to make sure the chassis plants power and transfers power through, you know, through the roll cage and through the chassis throughout the whole car, instead of trying to just tweak and bend the bars. A lot of words. We're gonna put some bars in this thing today. Hopefully be quite a few more than 2, because my design intentions for this thing includes an X right there in that plane, because like I mentioned before, the anti-roll bar is gonna mount kind of right in that little nook right there, and that will make it super strong. I believe the links will be outside, but the mounts will be right there in that little nook of where that bar bends and then goes down to the upper control arm mounting point. Trying to look at it from the perspective of where is the stiffest place in the car, or where can I make the chassis the stiffest for that anti-roll bar. Because the anti-roll bar, my opinion is where the most load gets put into the chassis, or any drag race chassis. Any chassis that has an anti-roll bar, that's the most, where the most twist prevention needs to be engineered into the roll cage. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna cut some bars, notch some bars, drill some holes to let the air breathe through the tubes while I'm welding, and then I'm gonna go home and go to bed. But we'll continue this video beyond that. So let's get to work and make some stuff happen. So first time lapse of this video, and there's only 2 in this video, if I'm spoiling the end of this video just a little bit here for you guys. But it's going to be the process of putting some more bars in the car, and we're starting with a measurement for that top of the main hoop down to the rear. I don't know what you want to call that bar. It's got a number in the chassis cert, but I don't know. It is what it is in my car. It's just a rear frame hoop, I guess we could call it. But I kind of took a rough measurement of what I thought the degree needed to be, or the tube, which degree the tube needed to be notched. So set up the notcher for that, and then put a mark on the top of the tube. And actually what I'm doing here, which it's not super noticeable, but there's an 1.5 inch hole saw notcher in the notcher here, and the main hoop is 1 5/8 inches, and the rear hoop that's on the horizontal plane in the car, that is 1.5 inches. So the main hoop, I'm landing right in the middle of the bend, like where the pipe is actually, or the tube is actually curved there. So I know that I'm going to have to hand notch that some to get it to fit just like I want it to, nice and tight all the way around. Because while there are notchers that allow you to cut a notch in the middle of a bend, there are not any notchers out there, short of some really expensive, crazy CNC machine that would really not be worth the time and effort that would be required to program it to notch this tube. No notcher, whether it's one of the mill notchers or a hole saw type notcher, none of them will notch a curve through a piece of pipe so that your tube can fit up in the middle of a curve. Hopefully that makes sense in how I described it there. If not, I will maybe show you guys in real time. And so being that I know it's going to be notched by hand, that last little bit, I just leave the 1.5 inch notcher in there so that it gets it close, and then I can draw it in the rest of the way with a little bit of hand notch. So a couple of trips back and forth to the car, drag the HTP welder over to the car itself, which we actually have 2 HTPs. This is the smaller welder. I think it's, I don't know, I'll have to get the information off of it in the next video. But we also have a larger one that kind of stays put over by the wall, straight behind, straight under the Holley EFI banner over there. That one has a water cooler on it, so it's nice for doing a lot of long runs on stuff, for doing bench welding and whatnot. But we've got the driver's side of this tube notched in. We're going to put some weld on it, and then I've already notched the bottom of the tube already at the same angle. And so now I need to mark where, which I've actually already done it, but I need to mark the tube where it's going to mimic, or where it's going to land on the main hoop. And I already had notched the bottom the same angle as the other side. And on the top, there is a little bit of angle that the tube needed to be notched, as well as the curve. So knowing that both of the bottom notches were going to be, you know, pretty much the same, within probably a 1/2 degree, I notched both of them the same, and then went and finished the top notch on the driver's side tube, came back and finished the top notch on the passenger side tube, drilled the holes for the air to move around, polished the tubes all up where everything's going to weld, did some tack welding to put them in place. And then you might have noticed back in the time lapse just a little ways, after I got them tacked, I step out of the car and I look, sight them through the quarter windows, sight them across the back of the car, put the level on them in different spots to try and see how closely they are to each other. So if I zero the digital protractor, digital angle finder on the crossbar, the horizontal bar, and then kick it up on one side, it should be, say, positive 35 degrees, and then it should be negative 35 degrees on the other tube. So that's what I did there. Everything worked out well, and now I'm going to get as much of it welded in as I can without taking the body off of the car, which obviously we know that's going to be happening eventually. But to begin with, we're just going to do as much as we can, which sometimes means crawling in and out and getting yourself all crammed up inside of this thing so that you can access the weld and be comfortable when I'm welding, because I think that is very important for having successful, really nice welds, is to be comfortable while you are in the welding position. All right, well, that's got those two 95% welded in. I could probably cram myself up in there and get more of that welded, but it'll be a lot easier when I take the body off. So I'm going to leave that for now, and You guys can kind of see what I've got my welder set up as. 148 amps is pretty hot, but if we had the screen or the camera set up on the screen while I was welding, I was probably only running probably 80 amps, if that, maybe only 60. Maybe a little more on the 083 wall welds. And that's one reason why I leave the amperage set high, so that I can modulate it with my foot. And in doing that, I don't have to stop and readjust to, like, you know, for each different thickness of tubing, because typically you only need about 1 amp per 1,000th of thickness of the tube. At least that's what I was taught years ago. So usually want to have it a little bit higher, so you're not just wide open waiting for the tube to get hot enough to melt your filler rod in. But you know, I run it a little high, and like I said, I was probably 90, 95 amps on the joint to the 83 thousandths wall tube, but it was just a quick little blip to 85, 90 amps probably. I could film that and, you know, show you guys that maybe one of the other days while one of the other guys is here to help me film. So, and then on the 058 wall or 065 wall, 1.5-inch tubing, it was probably, you know, probably 65, 70 maybe. But now that we've got those in, and from all I can measure, they appear to be about maybe 1/10 of a degree different from each other side to side, which some of that could be that the rear hoop there isn't quite symmetrical, all that stuff side to side. But I think I'm gonna maybe attempt what would end up being 3 more tubes, and that's the X that I was talking about there. But before I do that, I'm gonna take this top piece of bar out there, and that X is only gonna be probably 1.125, maybe 1.25. Yeah, how about that? 1.125. We'll use that piece right there. That should be plenty strong enough, you know, trying to squish the X, and as short as those all are going to be right there, be plenty strong enough. And it's just an extra set of bars that I'm adding in just to provide some extra stiffness. All right, back to work. right, so how about that? We did some music to start out that time lapse, and now we're going to do some talking voiceover on the time lapse here, just because that seems to be what more people like, you know, trying to do a little bit for a little bit of everybody. And, you know, can't always make everybody happy, but we're going to try and do our best. And when it comes to cutting this X into the back of the car, or notching the tubes for this X in the back of the car, the first bar is relatively easy, because obviously we're just kind of filling the X, or filling this rectangle from one corner down to the other opposite corner so that we start the X. Now you may understand how it might be a little difficult, because we want to get the X out as wide as we can so that it lands as close as we can to the corners, but being that the absolute longest part of this rectangle is that diagonal, well, we can't exactly roll the tube in there if it is at all longer than that diagonal. So the problem with that is that, you know, these tubes that we're notching to are round, so that means as the bar in the X would wrap around the horizontal or the vertical bar, you would have to grind off that part that would then tighten back up to the tube once you passed the tight spot. Making sense in my head talking about this, but I realized that it might not be transferring well to actually in a way that you guys could possibly understand it. So, and for some reason there's a little bit of a dead spot here in the time lapse. Oh, I know, I was going to make the little tool. So in one of the more recent Cameron Johnson videos, the guys that are building Cletus's new Eagle, I noticed they had a piece of angle aluminum that was notched out in the middle on one side of the angle so that they can perfectly align the bars in their X. So I went and made one of those, clamping it to the bars that I went and just made, and it turns out that that's a pretty trick little tool. So I have no problem admitting that I am always watching what other people are doing to try and get ideas to make the work that we do in our shop better. I've learned things from all kinds of different fabricators, race car builders, off-road racing truck builders, motorcycle builders. You know, there's all sorts of different people that we can learn from in this world. And my hope is that you guys may pick up some things from my videos here and can use on your own projects. I think that would absolutely be awesome. And, you know, we all try and do our best when it comes to building our cars. And while this is a huge project, I do believe that it is something that just about anyone could do themselves if they were to, you know, take the time. It does take a little bit of effort to learn how to TIG weld, but the grinding and the notching and the fitting, that's something that anybody can really do. It may take you a little longer than someone who does this very often, like I do, or any of the guys in the shop, or, you know, somebody that is like any other race car shop. Yes, they're going to be able to do it faster, and you pay for that when you take your car to a shop. They're also going to install in your car or build into your car a lot of the tricks that they have learned along the way of building other cars. But with the YouTube generation, there's a lot of learning that we can all do from each other. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I'm not against admitting, or I'm not too proud of the stuff that I do or the work that we do to admit that I came up with it all myself. No, that is stuff that I've picked up along the way from other people. And I definitely think we can always learn from each other. So anyways, this X, I have fit as tight into the corners as I can get so that at least when I'm welding the very tips of this X in, the welds are overlapping onto the welds of these vertical tubes, the vertical 1.5-inch bars that kind of tie into, I guess, what we could call the rear inner frame rails. So at least all of the welds are kind of tying everything into the X. Like I said, I would have liked to have been able to land the X to where it was the center of the bar landed right in the corner. But the only way I would have been able to do that would have been to leave one of those vertical bars out, or at least only tack weld it in and then knock it out to kind of do some custom notching. And I prefer to do it this way because the welds around these vertical bars were completely done, meaning that I didn't end up with a joint under another tube joint that wasn't completely welded. So the vertical bars got completely welded in, and then the bars that are a part of this X will be completely welded in. So in some areas you have to weld one joint before you can move on and weld the next joint into the car. Alrighty. Well, more X's, more triangles. Yeah, good stuff. It's a little bit late. Well, early, depending on how you want to look at it. But one thing I'm pretty excited about this thing. So we got 0 there. 32.95. 32.90. That's close enough. 32.85. Oh. Okay, that's pretty cool. Pretty happy about that. And I knew I was going to be close because when I made these two pieces here, they are literally identical to each other. Which, I mean, if I'm doing everything right, they should be. That means that box right there is equilateral things. Yeah, whatever that means. But I went ahead and welded all that in. Like I said, I still need to weld a little bit more up there, but that'll be a heck of a lot easier when the body is off. But I'm not going to take the body back off again until I get a lot more done. Which we're chipping away on this thing and really getting quite a bit done here. Should be pretty easy to finish out this back section here. Probably just come off at a little angle and come down flat, or will I come down more level? I don't know. That'll be something I'll mess with in the next few minutes of this video. Maybe. I don't know. I might start doing stuff like cutting the rest of these out, and then I can do things like install the new multi-hole lower boxes, torque boxes, control arm mounts, whatever we're going to call them. I could get those installed and reinforced because they are going to get a brace off the number 1 bar. So I guess we'll see what I feel like later in the week, because tomorrow, so Tuesday, yeah, today's late on Memorial Day, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we are going to be getting ready to pull the body off of that. Yeah, so that'll be, well, that video will probably already be out. We'll see how far we get by Thursday, which that video will already be out by now, because as you guys know, this is Sunday, or these are my Sunday videos. So I'm gonna go home, go to bed, and we'll be back in just a second. Well, aside from sitting the seat back into the car and looking at how some other things are gonna possibly work out for some other tubing. That's about all else that I did this week. Definitely, it's cool to see quite a bit of bars peeking through the windows. I saw you guys' comments about I should leave these open. Yeah, I kind of agree. But what I may end up doing is like a flush mount, or at least a Lexan window or an optic armor, and then I'll weld in my own flange here so that the window can bolt to it. Then I won't need any of the factory trim. Maybe, we'll see. See if we can make something work out with that. But another week where I wanted to get more done, but that's kind of the way it is. Next week's gonna be kind of tough too, because I don't have my kids next weekend. However, Eddie and I will be up in Pittsburgh racing with the Viper. Well, crew chief in the Viper for Lee. New track for us all. Should be pretty exciting. Go see a new space. And then 2 weeks after that, we will be at Mid-Ohio. So when this video comes out, a week later, we will be in Pittsburgh. And then 3 weeks later, we'll be in Mid-Ohio. So anyways, I'm gonna go home, edit this video, get it up for Sunday, and we will see you guys in the next one.